You're good to start.
Very good. Welcome, everyone, both new and old. This meeting of the Housing and Homelessness Committee of Manhattan Community Board 6 is called to order at 6:34 p.m. On Monday, October 18th. My name is Rich Mintz, and I'm the chair of this committee. Tonight, we are joined by District Manager Jesus Perez and Community Associate Alexandra Crawford. Members of the public, you can raise any questions or comments that you have through the Q&A feature of Zoom. And if there's time following our discussion, we will field questions from the public. I believe Corinne Vanderdonk has volunteered to take minutes tonight. Corinne, can you confirm that?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Corinne. And after this meeting, I will send you the notes from the chair's report. So you don't have to take notes on that if you don't want to. I'll send you what I said. We are ready for the roll call attendance, and Alexandra will conduct the roll call.
Committee members, I will call your name and you will unmute yourselves. When your name is called, please say present. I will announce if there is quorum. Neil Barclay.
Present.
Abigail Cruzmark.
Present.
Richard Mintz.
Present.
Anju Suresh.
Present.
Corinne Vanderdonk.
Present.
Jeff Zelen. Jeff. Sandra Leftoff.
Present.
Maura Wong.
Present.
Eric Goldberg.
Present.
Michael Devereaux.
Present.
We have quorum.
Thank you. All right. So the agenda for tonight's meeting was distributed ahead of time by the board office, and it is reflected on the screen before you. If there's no objection, we will adopt the agenda. Members of the committee, if you object to adopting the agenda, you may raise your hand through Zoom. Seeing no objections, the agenda for tonight's meeting is adopted. Now, the minutes from the March 15th meeting were distributed ahead of time by the board office. If there's no objection, we will adopt the minutes as drafted. Members of the committee, if you object to adopting the minutes, you may raise your hand through Zoom. Seeing no objections, the minutes from the March 15th meeting are adopted, and they will soon be available on the CB6 website. Just setting some ground rules. Most of you have heard all of this before, but we will say it for the record. In order to conduct an efficient meeting, no one may speak until granted the floor. Committee members, if you have a question about committee business or wish to make a motion, please raise your hand through Zoom. The chat function should not be used for committee business or questions about agenda topics. All such remarks should be made on the record by raising your hand through Zoom. Chat should only be used to alert us to any technical difficulties you are having or to state in writing information like an email address that was already stated aloud on the record during the meeting. When a committee member is given the floor to speak, I will identify you and you can unmute yourself so that you can speak. We are required by New York State law to have a transcript of the meeting, so please keep your questions and comments succinct and germane to the discussion. So I'm going to move us into the agenda. The only thing I'll do is say hello to Eric, who I didn't get to say hello to at the beginning. We're very happy to have you here.
Well,
welcome.
Thank you for the welcome. Appreciate it. Looking forward to the meeting and serving on this committee with everyone.
Very good. And what part of the neighborhood do you live in?
I live at Waterside Plaza.
Oh, excellent.
So I guess that's a neighborhood in of itself.
It certainly is.
Yes.
It certainly is.
So,
we have Stuytown represented and Waterside represented among our new arrivals, which is great. You both represent a lot of people. And we're happy to have direct representation on the committee. So I'll keep the chatter, cut the chatter short, and move into the first part of the agenda, which is a discussion of the bill, intro in the city council proposed to prohibit discrimination in rental housing based on criminal history. That's intro 2047-2020. And I don't want to give, I don't want to take too much time speaking about it. I'll just give the basics. As I think most of us are aware, being someone who has an arrest record or a criminal record can often be an impairment to people who are trying to get rental housing. And also, there are landlords who have put criteria in their occupancy agreements that say that if someone in your household is arrested or convicted of a crime, they might have the right to evict you from your housing. And this is a problem that has an impact disproportionately on people of color, people of lower income, and on a lot of families with children, since about half of American children have someone in their family who has an arrest record or criminal record. So there's a bill that has been proposed in the council to prohibit discrimination in housing based on criminal record in New York City, and to prohibit landlords or real estate agents, brokers, from asking about criminal history at any point in the process of leasing an apartment. It already has enough co-sponsors to pass. It has a formal co-sponsors, 26 of the 51 city council members, which is all they need. And it also has the explicit support of the mayor's office. Last fall, the mayor's office testified in favor of it in a city council hearing. So, given the strong support, I would like us to discuss whether we would like to submit a resolution to the full board in support of the bill. And I will open the floor to any comments from anyone. I see that Eric has his hand up first, and then Corinne.
I think Corinne was up first, but I think it's okay. It's not that big a deal, right? So I'll go ahead. Yeah, no, thanks for bringing this to our attention. I think it's an important, item, hopefully for us to support. I just had one quick question or clarification around parole. And the reason I asked that question is because if you're justice involved, I certainly understand why once you're through with kind of your involvement with the justice system, that I would certainly feel comfortable saying, hey, that should not be part of a conversation or questioned. But does that extend to people who are still kind of serving a sentence, but kind of outside of the system?
I am looking now at the summary. I mean,
and
it does
only because I think
appear
it's a question we may get, as opposed to we could discuss whether that's impactful, but I just think it's a question.
I understand. It does appear that it covers everyone, because they can't ask about your criminal record, which I think implies that they can't ask about your current status in the criminal justice system. But that is me inferring, and that's a question that we can put to the sponsors if we need to before discussion in full board.
Okay.
Corinne?
Just curious.
Yep.
Yes, thank you, Rich.
Yeah.
And thank you. This was one of those tricky, points in the whole system where, an entire family would be kicked out of their apartment because, 18 so it's so thank you for this. I have two questions. Do you know if any of our community board council members are in favor of this, of sponsoring this? Carlina, Keith,
Yes.
or Ben?
All three
All
of them
three?
are co-sponsors, yes.
Right, and then I just, are they in the bill, and I'm sorry, I didn't go in and research it, so maybe you know, and otherwise. Is there any differentiation made between different levels of crime, different kinds of crime?
It does not appear so, given the bill summary, because they can't ask about your arrest history or criminal record at all.
I'm just, if it's a sexual offense, I'm wondering.
Hang on,
if
I'm
there should
looking.
be
Well,
weeks.
I believe that there are state laws that supersede anything the city council would do, that govern where people with certain criminal histories may reside. That it seems commonsensically that would be true. And also, I know that, for example, NYCHA public housing is required by federal law to exclude people with certain criminal backgrounds. I believe sexual offenses are the ones. I just learned that today by doing research for this on the NYCHA website about the circumstances under which you can be permanently excluded from NYCHA. And the plain language of the bill that we're discussing appears to suggest that even in NYCHA, you would not be able to be barred for a criminal history, except in situations where existing federal law governing public housing supersedes this city law.
Okay. Thank you so much, Rich.
Sure. Are there any other people who would like to make comments or discuss this? All right. I don't know. It sounds like the sense of the group is in support. I did prepare a resolution in support, which we can discuss now if we would like to, and either talk about revising or adopt for presentation to the full board in the next meeting. Alexandra, you have a copy of that, right?
Yeah, I can pull it up right now. Give me 1 second.
Okay. Normally, I don't. I won't steamroll through and write the resolution myself. But we came up on time. I just heard about this 10 days ago. I didn't feel comfortable drafting any of you before our first meeting, so I just went ahead and did it. I based the language here mostly on the what do you call it? The letter in support, open letter in support signed by 77 advocacy organizations, which I included a link to in my email to you. So I won't read this aloud, but I'll sort of walk through it briefly. The first whereas establishes the problem, the history of the problem, in terms of declining the rent housing. The second whereas establishes the problem in terms of occupancy restrictions, where even if you have a lease, you can be kicked out, or who is allowed to live with you can be specified by the landlord. The third whereas talks about the impact of the problem in general, in terms of contributing to homelessness and joblessness, and the negative effect on children who live in households where a family member has a criminal history. The fourth whereas notes that it is disproportionately people of color and people of lower incomes who are impacted, many of whom are people who don't have as many options in terms of where they can live. In the fifth whereas, what I said verbatim is, it is our belief that subjecting New York City households to housing obstacles based on arrest or criminal history is fundamentally unjust. In the seventh whereas, I laid out what the bill does, and below that noted that it already has majority sponsorship on the city council and the sponsorship of the mayor. And then the resolution is that we urge the city council to pass it and the mayor to sign it into law. Now I will stop talking and let anyone comment who wishes to. All right, here come the hands. Sandra, you're first.
It's a question about NYCHA. Does NYCHA have its own separate rules, and does this affect NYCHA's rules?
NYCHA does have rules. Its rules they're pretty complex. Basically, if you are guilty of certain socially disruptive crimes, they have the option but not the obligation to bar you. In other words, they won't automatically do it. There is a judgment made, and you can appeal it. I do think that this supersedes that, and I'm actually looking at the text right now, and to see if there is an exception in the law, in the proposal regarding NYCHA, and there is not. It's a short. The language is short and doesn't include any carve-outs. So it is my assumption that this would apply in full to NYCHA, except in regard to the situations where federal law imposes obligations on NYCHA, which I believe are related to sexual offenses.
Okay, thanks.
All right, Maura, you are next.
Yep, hi. Just a clarification question. The whereas starting at line 25, it says it would prohibit discrimination in rental leases and occupancy agreements and would prohibit landlords from inquiring about criminal records. Does that imply or include preventing discriminatory terminations of leases as well, so that people cannot lose their current housing?
Let me actually look at the specific language. So I'm looking at it here. It shall be, yes, it does include that because it explicitly prohibits a landlord from, oops, hang on, let me make sure. I actually can't. That is a matter of interpretation. I believe it does not protect you if you already have a lease, because the specific language is what it will prohibit is taking adverse action against an applicant for having been arrested or convicted. Doesn't say anything about existing leases. That is a concern. We don't think it's broad enough. Or I mean, if that's the point that you're making.
Yeah, I mean, I support, obviously, or not obviously, but I personally support the bill, but wonder if we might consider suggesting that or adding that in. I mean, I realize that the city council and the mayor's office already support it as is, so.
I would not object at all to adding a second resolved clause that says we urge the council to clarify, to extend the legislation to provide equivalent protections to people whose leases are already in force. And we can clarify with the sponsors, the primary sponsors office, whether it is in fact intended to be read that way. And if so, maybe we won't need that, but I don't object to that at all. But this is not my decision, so I'll pass the talking stick back to whoever wants to speak.
Oh, sorry, I have to raise my hand.
No, it's all right. There are no hands up. You're up.
Thank you, Mara, for catching that. Two things. One, for the minutes, I should say, asking for clarification.
Um, about whether the same protections are extended to people whose leases are already in force.
Okay. Already in force, great. And then can I make a motion? I'm sure I'm not doing this right. I should know this.
Hang
by
on, but
now.
before you do, I want to make
yeah.
sure we don't move on without allowing Abigail to speak because her hand is also up. Is
Right.
that okay first, and then we'll come back to you?
Totally.
Okay,
Thank you.
Abigail.
Oh, I was just going to suggest that we add a whereas to speak to this issue.
To the issue that Maura raised.
Maura raised. Mm-hmm. I'm not, again, sure if I need to make a motion, but I'm happy to provide the wording.
Corinne, is that consistent with what you were going to say?
That's exactly what I was going to say. So thank you, Abigail.
Okay. What I will consider is that there is a motion on the table made by Corinne to adopt the resolution with an amendment that makes clear that our intent is that the same protections be extended to people whose leases are already in force.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Abigail, is that you?
Yes.
Rich, is it okay if we write it now so that we just have it?
Of course, of course.
Okay.
I'm actually going to let Alexandra
I
take
can
notes because I can't type on the computer that I'm talking to you on.
I can type directly on this document if.
Oh, look at you!
Yeah.
It's a live document.
So yeah, if you want to let me know what wording you'd like, then I can just put it right there.
I'll propose something, and then we can discuss it. It will follow below the paragraph where your cursor is. So it would be this existing, therefore be it resolved, and then it would be and be it further resolved.
Okay. Let me just type it out first.
Yeah, you can clean up after. and be it further resolved that the board urges the council to clarify in the legislation that the protections it extends are applicable also to people whose leases are already in force. I mean, in force, 2 words, not enforced. Force, not forced.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's language on the table for you all to react to and modify.
We just have to add, but I think we're and it'd be further resolved. We have to add further.
Yeah, that'd be it further resolved.
But everything else is good. I agree with.
So that Corinne matches the intent of what you were asking for when you called the question.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. All right. So we have a motion on the table to adopt this resolution as amended. We have a second, and so we are now in a position for Alexandra to take a vote and determine whether we are going to present this to the board. This will be a roll call, and when your name is called, you can unmute yourself and answer in favor, opposed, abstain, or not entitled. And for those who are new, not entitled means you're abstaining because you have an affirmative conflict that means you're not entitled to vote. So in favor, opposed, abstain, or not entitled. Alexandra, I'll pass it to you.
Okay, I'm going to start. Neil Barkley,
Favor.
Abigail Cruzmark,
In favor.
Richard Mintz,
In favor.
Anju Suresh,
In favor.
Corinne Vanderdonk,
In favor.
Sandra Leftoff,
In favor.
Maura Wong,
In favor.
Eric Goldberg,
In favor.
Michael Devereaux.
In favor.
So it passes.
Thank you. Thank you all. And congratulations to our new members on casting your first committee votes and carrying out your obligations under the charter as a member of this committee.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Can the
Yeah.
vote tally be read aloud for the record and the minutes, please?
Yes. Yeah, sorry. It's 9 in favor and 0 opposed, 0 abstain, and 0 not entitled.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sandra, I see your hand is up. Did
Right,
I
I just had
fail
to-
to
I
call
had-
on you?
Yeah, aren't arrest and criminal records public records? I get the law, but,
They-
or what they're trying to do, but
They
isn't that?
they are
It's public, right? So if
they
you
are
wanna-
public records.
Okay.
I mean, obviously, people can look you up. The language of the law says that they can't take action based on the information, regardless of how they get it. I mean, you can't
Right.
stop people from taking action, but at least it's illegal.
Okay, it's illegal, but right, there's a whole other world.
Yeah.
That's the part.
There's a whole
okay.
word.
Yeah.
You
okay,
are
thanks.
correct. You're correct. And it doesn't say anything about penalties for this or anything like that.
Right.
But
So
Done.
it's a nice statement, but this serious loopholes. That's
as
all.
always, there is no guarantee
Okay,
that people will act properly.
all right.
All right. So thank you all for the first topic. I'm going to move on to the chair's report, where I have brief updates on 3 things that we have discussed in the past in this committee. The first one is the Tenant Opportunity to Purchase Act, also known as TOPA, which is Senate Bill 3157, sponsored by State Senator Zelma Myrie. The general idea behind this bill is that if a building owner of a residential rental building decides to sell it, a group of tenants within the building can form a consortium to purchase the building. And if they do that and can raise the financing, they will have a right of first refusal to purchase the building themselves as a collective. Legislation of this sort has been in force in Washington, D.C. for 40 years. And I believe 10,000 units of rental housing have been saved in this way. The bill is still in the Housing Committee in the Senate. It didn't make it out in the 2021 section. As I think most of you know, our legislature meets from January to June. And so anything that doesn't happen by June has to come back again in January. As we understand it, Senator Myrie's office is still serious about it. And they have offered to present to us on the bill if we want. And the question that I would raise is, do we want to invite someone? They were going to come last fall, and then we had conflicts 2 months in a row and didn't invite them. But does anyone have any discussion about this?
Hi, Rich. Just a thought, and I'm not sure if everyone's aware, but given I said I live at Waterside Plaza, Waterside Plaza was actually just sold, and was in the process of being sold. It's about 1,500 units, and the owners did not make any attempt to look to tenants, interested in purchasing. So, they sold the complex to Brookfield Properties, which does not have the best record. around, I guess, maintaining tenants, rights. So,
Yeah.
that's just
This-
kind of like a quick thing that's out there, just as something that's relevant in our own community. So
yeah, this did come up maybe 18 months ago in the community board when Brookfield was negotiating, when the owners were negotiating for renewal of the ground lease, and we went through a round of advocacy to protect the rights of the existing long-term residents, so that those affordable units would be preserved. And as I recall, the pressure was successful, and some protection was established, or at least it was messaged as a victory by the Tenants Association.
Yeah, well, it's interesting, and not to kind of get into too many details, but the Tenants Association at Waterside represents a small subset of tenants that were kind of, they represent themselves as being representative of the full set of tenants, but really there's a group that were the settling tenants that were here and part of, different agreements. So that group, it was preserved, but I assume the other 1,100 units will be at risk, going forward. So, yes. So I think it's an interesting piece, because those were two separate points in time. So when Waterside's former owners negotiated the land lease extension, they made some concessions, but on the sale was kind of a separate process, that took place, I think, outside of any engagement from the community.
All right. Well, it sounds
that being
like
said, it's an interesting piece to make available to tenants, at least have that right of first refusal.
So does anyone object if we reach back out to Senator Myrie's office and see if someone can present to us next month? No objections. So we will do that. We don't need to vote on that. You're just giving direction to us as to what we should do. So that's the first item. The second of three items is the Housing Our Neighbors with Dignity Act, or HONDA, was signed into law during the summer. This is Gianaris's bill that would provide state funding for organizations or companies that want to convert disused hotel rooms into affordable and or supportive housing. And as some of you may know, there were two proposals on the table last summer. There was the Gianaris proposal, which is the one that was passed, which provides funding but doesn't override local zoning in any way. So anyone who wants to, any institution that wants to take advantage of this still has to meet land use requirements, and if they need a variance, they have to go through ULURP, the land use process. There was a Cuomo proposal on the table at the same time that would have overridden local zoning, and that one was not adopted. So the situation we're in is that funding is available for hotel to housing conversion, but anything that it requires a zoning change will have to go through ULURP. And I'm just bringing this information to you. We don't have any information about any plans by anyone to execute any conversions taking advantage of this funding in our district. I understand that there are organizations like New Providence that are looking at doing it in other districts, and we do have vacant hotels, so it's possible this will come up, and I just wanted everyone to be informed. Any conversation about that before I go on to the third topic? I see Corinne's physical hand is up.
Yes. I remember when this came up, and we made notes for our state senators on this. Do you remember this?
Yes, I do.
At the time, there was a geographic limitation as to which, does that still exist?
Hang on, I'm looking. I don't believe so, but I'm looking right now
And it would
directly at
basically,
the bill.
yeah, because it would exclude most of CB6.
Yeah, I am. No, there's no geographic constraint, except for the fact that if it's not in a district where the new building type is allowed by right, they would have to go through land use review.
Okay.
But there's no exclusion map. There's no map geographic exclusion.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Anything else on this? This is just so you all know that it's happening. All right, I will go on to the third of three topics, which is the New Providence proposed supportive housing and I believe women's shelter project that is in the land use review process. This is a project on, as I recall, East 45th Street on a site where New Providence is currently operating a homeless shelter, and they have proposed to demolish the building and build a new building that has both a homeless shelter component and a permanent supportive housing component in separate parts of the building with separate entrances, along with some public facilities like a health clinic on the ground floor that would be publicly available and so forth. We've already heard about this, and the update is that it may be certifying before the end of the year, and if it does, we may be holding a public hearing in November, which will probably be concurrent to our regular meeting in November, but conceivably might not be. Jesus, am I characterizing all of that accurately as far as you know?
Yes, you are. The only thing I would clarify is that it is not technically yet in the public review process. That will happen only once it certifies.
I see.
And
see.
For our new members and anyone watching from home, to certify means that the Department of City Planning has certified that an application for a project is complete and ready to go out to the public. So yes, the agencies involved are looking to certify, or looking for this application to be certified on November 1st, but delays happen all the time, so there's no guarantee that will actually happen. But once once it certifies, then 9 days later, it officially enters public review, and that's when we can begin scheduling public hearings.
Perfect. And I will make an editorial plug right now for the new members of this committee, for the land use training conducted a couple times a year by the Manhattan Borough President's Office for community board members. It is worth the 2 hours to sit through, because you learn everything you could possibly want to know about the elementary mechanics of New York City land use approval. So that's just to let you know this might be coming up. And that is the end of my chair's report. We're moving into the old and new business. And I have a couple of things that I would like to raise, but I would like to open the floor first to anyone who might have something else. And I see Abby's hand is up.
Thanks, Rich. Not me personally, but I see there are a couple people in the chat who are flagging 161 Lexington. I don't know if you know anything about that. I personally don't.
I know that it is a hotel that has been being used as a temporary shelter. That's all I know. I know that there is some community opposition to it and concerns that have been raised. What I don't know is whether there are any plans by anyone to use this program. to convert it into permanent housing, or there are more general concerns. I can't see the chat from where I am.
Abigail, maybe you can read out those questions in the Q&A.
Sure. So Mark wants to know, how can we address concerns relating to proposed supportive housing project in our neighborhood? Apparently on HDC bond, it says that bonds were issued in September for this potential project.
Is
Gail
this for
wants to know
161?
Yes.
Yeah, we
Gail
should
wants to know
definitely.
what's happening with 161, and Mark adds that a bond issue has already happened for 161.
Okay, then we should definitely investigate, find out what we can about what is being planned and by whom, and come back, because I do think that there is enough feeling on the issue in the district that we should attend to it if there is a role for us to play one way or another. And here we have Gail's got information. Thank you, Gail. It is Project Renewal. So we in the office should be able to find out more about what their plans are. Jesus, is that right?
Yes, we are on it. And in fact, what we'll do is we'll set up a call with them and see what we can find out. The information about this from the operator that's currently there is that contrary to what has been heard in the neighborhood, this will not be a permanent shelter. So people can rest assured on that. But beyond that, we need to find out more, and we're going to do that first by reaching out to Project Renewal, and then we'll figure out where to go from there.
Gail, thank you for bringing this information to us. Would you please put your email address in the chat to make sure that we can get back in touch with you? And I see the comment that you just made that you want to make sure that safety concerns are addressed regarding anything that happens at the site. Oh, okay. It's not Gail. Thank you, Linda. Linda Clarizio, looks like. Got it. Thank you. And Jesus, do you have that email address from the chat, or should I read it into the record?
No, and anyone who is in this meeting and able to submit a question through Q&A, we've got their email address on file when they registered anyway.
Okay, very good. And Linda, I have yours. Okay, so that's that. Are there any other older new business items anyone wants to raise before I raise the two that I have? All right, so we'll move on to my two. The first one, we may not need to do anything, but I just wanted to mention it. Most of you were probably here on September 1st, the night of Tropical Storm Ida. I definitely was here because I was driving into the city from New Jersey at the time the storm hit, and pulled off just before getting submerged on the approach to the George Washington Bridge. So I lived through this myself. I know that there has been some basement flooding in our district as a result of that. That's taken some time to clean up, and obviously much more serious damage, including loss of life elsewhere in the city. Other committees are looking at long-term responses to the likelihood of further storms like this. I'm wondering if the people in this group, and I'm asking open-endedly, think that there's anything our committee should do in response to, excuse me, storm-related flooding in the past or in the future. Or if we think the other committees have it covered. Corinne.
It's not exactly what our committee can do, or I don't think we can do really anything. My basement and first floor were terribly flooded, and I was told that the issue was really that in our particular neighborhood, the problem is that the sewage system got clogged. So there was just nowhere for the water to go. Probably just like large
Just
pieces of trash.
a citywide issue.
But in our particular neighborhood, it was because like that was why what happened in my area. It was because there was just no drainage possible. So
the stormwater system couldn't even operate because it was all clogged.
Right. So it's just kind of like I mean, what can we do as a committee about that? I don't know.
Yeah. All right. Well, maybe it's just something we keep our eyes on, except just as I say that, I see that Maura's hand is up. So Maura, I'll pass it to you.
Yeah, just quickly, I'm on the Parks Committee as well, and it was brought up at the last meeting that there would be an initiative to start looking at ways in which potential new plantings, beds, permeable surfaces, green roofs, et cetera, could possibly be constructed, et cetera, in order to alleviate some of the rainwater. So that may be something that we could also help them out with, or do our own assessment of, especially for some of the larger housing developments in our district.
Okay. Well, are there any action items for our committee out of this discussion, or should we just sort of keep this on our issues to watch list? Abby, your hand is up.
Yeah, the only thing I can think of is maybe speaking with somebody from the city Department of Homeless Services about like emergency planning for street homeless in situations like this. I was kind of thinking from a public safety angle that would be handled by the Public Safety Committee. Environment would take more of like the big picture. But I am kind of curious like how the city plans for and responds to sort of inclement weather with regard to street homeless.
That is actually a good question. And I don't actually know anything about what the contingency plan is for people who live on the street in the event of serious storms. And that probably is something we should look into. So I guess, Jesus, will you note that that's an open question for us?
Sorry, I was, my attention was diverted. Can that?
No, it's fine. The question is finding out more about what DHS's protocol is for ensuring the safety of New Yorkers who live on the street when a serious storm is anticipated.
Yes, actually, that's something that Alexandra can reach out to DHS about, and we will let you know if we find out anything.
Very good. Thank you.
Yeah, I have the question down, so.
Okay, great. Corinne, your hand is up.
Yes, I was wondering if there is such. I mean, there is code blue for when there's really cold weather coming in. But yeah, is there a similar code?
Yeah, there's a similar thing for rain.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Very good. Thank you. All right. So I think we've run through that topic, and before I turn to my other one, I just want to acknowledge thank you to Mark Haddad for providing information in the chat for the office as we look into 161 Lexington. Just want to acknowledge we got that. And we'll follow up with this committee when we have more. So the only other thing I had on the agenda is I wanted to get some initial thoughts from the members of the committee of specific issues you would like us to address, if you have any at this time, other than the baseline advocacy that we do for supportive housing and for safe services and treatment for New Yorkers experiencing homelessness. Are there specific are specific issues you all are interested in as committee members. And I see let me look. I see multiple hands up. Let's take you in order. Sandra, you are first. And you are on mute. I thought I could get through a whole meeting without saying you were on mute to anybody, but
You did it.
you're the lucky winner today.
The eviction, the eviction protections are going to end. I don't know what, I just joined it. I don't know what you've been
Yeah.
doing about that, but it's obviously a major issue that's coming down the pike of concern. So.
Yeah, that
So
is
it's partly a
that's a
question
good
of what
point.
has happened and the what and how. How are you reaching out to the community to to both keep them informed and help them figure out solutions to what all is worried is about to happen.
Is there anyone who would like to do a little investigation about the current state of eviction protections, state eviction protections legislation, so that we can have a conversation about this in 4 weeks?
I teach run an internship class on housing and community involvement. So my students are all over the place. So if you don't mind, I could have them do this as a project.
I mean, as long as
granted, it's taking advantage of my students, but I think would be really interesting for them. And they're working for various, right to counsel, blah, blah. So
yeah, I mean, it's and they probably are immersed in the subject in a way that we aren't. So that would be terrific to get their paraprofessional expertise on the subject. So
professional.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
They're all professionals. Okay.
No, they're in training. Yeah, they're undergraduates, but I think would be, yes, they're very involved in it. Their agencies are involved in it. So I think it'd be a nice organizing thing for them.
That's a great idea. Thank you for proposing
So it's
that.
state. You're interested in where's the state on
Well,
this?
I mean, I said state because the federal protections have obviously expired.
Right.
And as I understand it, there has been no permanent action on a permanent state protection. So I mean, I think it's probably going to have to come from the state because, I don't think the city has the oomph to do it.
Yeah.
But I don't, I mean, I'm not an expert in this. This is just me talking off the top of my head as an informed layperson.
Well, okay.
All right.
Okay.
So we still have 2 hands up. Anju, your hand is up. And now it's down. Corinne, your hand is up.
Sorry, I unmuted myself for a second.
Oh, okay.
I thought I was already talking. No, what I was saying is my question or my thought was in follow up to what Sandra was saying about the eviction. I believe in regards to the eviction moratorium, I was wondering if there's any work that can be done in terms of making sure people are aware of the resources they have on the emergency rental assistance program. I know just like nationwide, there just hasn't been a really good deployment of allocation through this program. And so
do you mean work that we, the board, can do in our own community? Yeah. I mean, it's interesting you raise that because I saw a flyer taped to a lamppost in my neighborhood with no attribution saying, did you know that you may be eligible for emergency rental assistance? Here is the number to call. And here's the website to visit to find out whether you are. And this was just something somebody printed up and put up, which suggests to me that we're not the only ones who think that the official outreach is not sufficient.
Yeah. What I read just the other day was that it's so bad nationally that people or state, the federal government's going to start cutting back funding to states based on how effective their program is and if they're not using the money properly. I don't know what the stats are in New York specifically, but seeing as that we are more engaged with, we're on the ground and more localized. So we could, if there is a way that we could find a way to do outreach to communities that would need it within our jurisdiction, I think that would be a really effective.
That's a good thing to put on the list. That's a good thing. And Just to put in the record, we got a comment from Ann Greenberg that Met Council on Housing and Housing Justice for All are sources that we should look at, and that state legislators have been emailing about emergency rental assistance, and that is true. We have had Housing Justice for All speak in the past, and we've got a good relationship with them. And so probably one thing that we should do as part of our follow-up is reach out to them and get their take on where things are at state level, which is something I can take responsibility to do. All right, and Sandra, your hand is up.
I'm going to unmute first. I would just want to follow up on what Andrew said. I have the same, I love it, right? Because people don't know and they really need to be informed, and that's such a huge issue. And my question was, this is about how the community board works. Is there some, I often wondered if the community board could serve as an information source, like a community board, have a board with information. So if somebody puts it in the street, we put it on some board at the community board where that information can be, accessible to people.
Well, the intent, one of the intents of our periodic emails is to serve as information to members of the community who are signed up. And that's one reason why every time you go to the CB6 website, you get that annoying nag to put in your email address, even if they've had your email address for 5 years. But I think it's a good thing to encourage people to join, because the office does compile and distribute a lot of useful information. But beyond that, like I do think it would be good for us to promote better the kinds of public interest programming that we find out about. I'm just not sure how to do that, and concrete ideas to do that would be great. Abigail, your hand is up.
Yeah, I had an idea about that. I'm not sure our relationship with like Turtle Bay Neighborhood Association, but I do know they have like a physical board outside the Morton Williams there. I know Dag Hammarskjöld, there's like a community place where people post stuff. So I do think maybe it's something worth looking into if we get like a flyer together. I think we could probably send it. Yeah, like send it to our networks, and
public libraries would all post it, stuff like that. So maybe it sounds like what's coming together is a consensus that we should do some physical community outreach around the availability of rental assistance.
I think that's right. I think there's a lot of people who read our emails, but there's a lot of people who go to the farmers market at Dag Hammarskjöld, and that's how they get their news. So
all right,
I'm in favor.
I mean, I will say that I noticed that flyer taped up, so that stuff does reach people. All right, so that's a good one. Any other? I don't want to. Oh, Anju, your hand is up.
Just another quick comment then on that is, if you, when you're reaching out to Housing Justice for All, I don't know if this is possible, but if at all they have any way of like any data or any insight as to like where we should then be positioning ourselves within the community to be most effective, or we're just gonna, or if there's.
You mean where physically, geographically within the community?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll put that in my notes.
That's the only thing I want to.
Very good. All right. So that's good. Anything else anyone want to raise? I don't want to cut the discussion short, but also I don't want to run the meeting on. If we've had enough to say, it's been an hour and a very productive hour in my opinion. So anything else anyone would like to raise? All right, that's all the business I have. Anything else from you, Alexandra, before I invite a motion to adjourn?
I see that there's a couple questions still on the Q&A. Also, Anne Greenberg said with ERAP, you can reach out to landlords too. And I think this question was from an earlier discussion, but it says, is the high school on 57th Street the only shelter? Baruch doesn't seem to be a designated shelter anymore. Where should people go?
Oh, I believe this is in reference to where people who are on the street should go for shelter in extreme weather events. Is that the discussion we think that maps back to? And I don't know the answer to that, but that is something that we should look into. Oh, about flooding. Very good. Yeah, that is actually something that we should look into. And it's possible that now that Brook is open again, it'll be. I live next to Brook, and the difference in the street activity and the level of energy here since it reopened after a year of being closed is extremely noticeable. But yeah, we should look into that too, into what the emergency shelter provisions are in this district. All right. It looks like we've hit everything. Are there any, does anyone have a motion to adjourn the meeting? Hang on just one, before I take that motion, I do want to acknowledge one comment that just came in under the wire from Jenny Hurwitz in the Q&A, which is that she thinks it's a legitimate question whether a prospective tenant has been convicted of a violent crime, and that's a reasonable comment to make, and we can bring that back at full board when the resolution is presented. Okay.
Actually, Rich,
yes, go ahead, Eric.
Just since that comment was made, I just wanted to respond, with a thought around that, because I imagine that that's, something that we would hear back from the full board. I think the interesting piece is the collective nature of this. So if collectively no one is asking for this type of information, it seems to be more valuable to do this together, right? I understand from an individual landlord's perspective or potential tenant, they may want to know who's living next door to them, but we don't have that. We don't have that option for people living next to us for many things. And I think if we're doing this as a community, we're saying we're not going to ask these questions and get this information, then everyone's in the same situation. And I think that's the idea behind this, to legislate it, because clearly when people are trying to market their buildings, they may want to, say, hey, our building asks this question, but your building doesn't. So we're quote unquote more desirable. But if from a legislative perspective, we're doing this collectively, it seems much more powerful.
Okay, thank you for that. And now I will return to, I believe Sandra had a motion. Did I cut you off?
You're hoping I have a motion, right? Not another point. Yes,
Well,
I had a motion, an
yes.
adjournment.
All
I
right.
have the motion to adjourn.
All right. Does anyone object to our adjournment? If you do, please raise your hand or make a noise or wiggle your nose. No objections. With seeing no objections, this meeting is adjourned at 7:37 p.m. and I appreciate all of you for your warm participation. Thank you. And thanks